Let me speak about some posters designed on PowerPoint. And with the designs you see, I'm sure you would say that this is nothing less than a professional tool or a good design tool for you to start off designing. So these are some of the samples of the posters which you see. Everything from 0 to 100% is created on Microsoft PowerPoint, which is a free tool for a lot of people. We download PowerPoint or we have Microsoft Office Suite onto our system. So this is the power of the PowerPoint as a tool of the many 50 tools we have in the bucket. So some of the elements you can see are from the recent upgrade to the brand manual, which is the gradient, which you can see here. We have used True Maroon Gradient. This is the transparencies which has been used on the linear gradient, the white opaque transparency. So you have seen all these designs and all of these are created on PowerPoint. And that's where I would say that any tool can be used. It's important you pick one tool and work on it. The good part of PowerPoint is you can easily replicate the templates and change the content. And that's the reason for Toastmasters, a lot of beginners, I would request you to start exploring PowerPoint as a tool to start designing and slowly migrate to Canva, which requires little technical expertise in terms of understanding some of the gradients. And we have a lot of YouTube tutorials, but I'm going to give you a hands-on demo for today's session. So in this particular demo, we would be speaking about ease of using application. And I would probably tell you that once you start designing, you need to keep all the details ready. I usually have a practice of creating the design on a piece of paper. I scribble the paper that how do I want to place the photograph, I want to place the heading, and then I start designing. I ask the VP Education or the other members for photographs. I understand what kind of meeting it is. Is it a themed meeting where I'm showing some cultural bond? So I pick up a photograph from Photo Shelter which shows cultural bonding. And then it's very important. The third point is very important. And I would suggest every one of you that when you're designing, design with the right state of mind. If you're sad, some people design really amazing posters when they're sad. But if you're not in the right state of mind, you'll not do justice with what you're doing as a designer or as a VPPR. Take your time. It would not take more than 1 hour or 2 hours for you to start designing and completing a poster for your club meetings. And I'm saying it to be very honest, people who have learned and who I have mentored have not do not take more than 2 hours to design, because the template is ready. They know how to put things, and it's more about placing things rightly to look visually good. So I'm going to talk from start to end. How do we use one of the tools like PowerPoint? And I'll get on to the demo session in a few minutes. But before that, I would like to get some of the things clarified. And it's very important that we understand why is it like this? Why not the other way? Okay. Let me ask again a question that which all are the gradients do you feel are brand wise okay, or the branding team is fine with it? You see 1 to 8, which maybe I'll ask you which all are okay for branding. Some people have said none of them. 1. Let the answer keep coming. 8 is something which is okay, none, 1 and 2. So I guess Suryakant, Toastmaster Suryakant Kirloskar has answered it right. The gradient 1 and 2 are okay, though it's not the linear gradient, it's not the linear, or it's not the loyal blue gradient, or not the true maroon gradient. But apart from these, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are not brand compliant. It may look the colors of branding palette, but the problem is when you mix 2 colors, I told you that there is a third color which is formed. And here you can see that there is a violet color which has been created because of the combination of these 2 colors. And it looks really fancy, but Toastmaster branding does not endorse mixing of gradients. And For 1 and 2, there is a specific instruction which I understood from the brand expert some years back, how to use such gradients or such way of using these gradients on posters. I would again ask you a similar question. From 1 and 2, which is the gradient which you feel is, or which is the poster which is compliant? Number 1. Perfect. I see a lot of you answering number 1. Yes, number 1 is compliant because Toastmaster has not put any note that you can use white as a second color in the gradient. Again, this tarnishes the rule, the basic rule that the colors change. And hence, when you're using any kind of gradient, what you can see here also, this is not a white gradient. It is the transparent gradient which you can see on the number 1 photo. So this is one of the things which I wanted to kind of bring. Before I get onto the demo, I would like to clarify any questions you have. Probably you can unmute yourself and we can take 10 minutes to answer those questions, and then let's get onto the demo and we can take rest of the questions post the demo. I see Donna M raising the hand. Please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Okay, my question is if you could repeat the order that we should create our flyers in. I know you said something about we create it, most people create it and then try to fit the content in.
Okay, so when you start designing, you need to first gather what content would go in. Number 1. Number 2 is identify the images which will represent the content which you want to showcase. For example, for an open house meeting, which we are doing recently in India, what is more important is it should not look like too much of a meeting setup. It needs to show that the meeting is open. It's like conversation. It's fun. And that's the reason maybe the image what is shown on the flyer or currently on the screen can be picked up, which shows that it is not very formal setup, right? We need to get more guests. So that's where we need to identify what images can be used. So understand what content goes in, then pick the images, and then use guidelines to merge both of these together. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah.
Anyone else? You can raise your hand and probably I can ask you to shoot out the question. Yeah, Jerry, please go ahead. I can answer your question.
Yes, afternoon. I would like to ask about Canva. Are you suggesting to subscribe a Canva? It's worth it to subscribe the Canva software?
Okay. I would not recommend to subscribe Canva. I use Canva. The free version is as good as the paid. Definitely, there are some of the templates which you get on top of the free version and the paid version. But to get started, the free version is good. Even there is a place where you can save these fonts rather than always picking it up from the brand manual, copy pasting the hexadecimal codes. Even in the free version, you can save up to 3 fonts. So I do not recommend you to go and spend money. Rather, if your club has funds, spend money on some of the ads if you want to run to get more guests, which will increase the size of a Toastmaster family. Probably I'll pick some from the chat and then we will come to Toastmaster Riyadh. Can you tell how to use 1 and 2nd of the gradient? Yes, I will be showing that as we show the demo. What thoughts do you have on black gradient and white gradient on pictures? As I said, that black is not a Toastmaster recommended color. We can use black gradient very sparingly. I've seen some of the materials, the videos, you can see some of the screens. As you can see, this screen has a black gradient, so the Toastmaster logo is very evident because we have a restriction how to put the Toastmasters logo. There needs to be a clear contrast. So some of the images like this, which is very bright, you can use a black gradient. I will show how to create a transparent gradient like this. So that would be easy for you. I see Toastmaster Furkan saying, what are the thoughts? Okay, that's covered. Toastmaster Maria says that in the brand manual, it says cartoon type images are not allowed. Does that mean it's no, not to use any infographics or Silotos? Yes, it's not allowed because a lot of us don't know how to use it properly and we start misusing it. Maybe we'll start using the clip art full screen and it would not show like a Toastmasters meeting. It would show like a kids meeting or kids channel. So that's the reason Toastmasters said clear no. And that's the reason, one of the reasons, if you are a seasoned Toastmasters, we have one color also removed, that is the red color from the brand manual, because people started using red as a main base color and they used a lot of red colors. Maybe let's get on to the people who have raised hands and then I'll come back to these questions. Yes, Toastmaster Rihanna, I believe you had raised your hand. Riyadh, yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, very much audible.
Yeah, just I want to ask. I have a licensed Adobe software, all versions. So
Okay.
if I'm concentrating on Adobe only because it's already licensed and I'm paying for it, which among them are useful for creating all these brochure kind of stuff for marketing?
So the easiest tool is Adobe Photoshop. You get a lot of tutorials. You can go to Udemy, learn the basic how to design using Adobe Photoshop. It is very simple, and you can learn it quickly and implement it. The next is Illustrator and Adobe Illustrator and InDesign, which is slightly complicated. So I would recommend start using Adobe Photoshop as a first, and then explore the other tools slowly because you have the full suite of Adobe, maybe the Creative Cloud.
All the colors and fonts are already available,
Everything
or
you get all the colors. The colors is something which we decide, so you can pick the colors.
Quick question,
and
are those
fonts,
free
and
of
fonts.
charge?
Yes, Donna, you were saying something?
Are those two free of charge?
No, Adobe suite is paid. It is a very expensive suite because it is used for professional designing. So if you have something already paid and subscribed because of the company you're working in, then I would suggest you can try. But for Toastmasters, I don't think so. You need to go to that extent of expertise in designing. You can create really good flyers. All of the flyers which I've shown has been already appreciated by district and they've given me the PR Torchbearer Award also for the designing. So I guess you can design very much in PowerPoint or Canva if you're comfortable with Canva.
Thank you.
Let's take one more question from Heshma and then we would get on to the demo.
Yeah, hi, Toastmaster Cyril. Actually, I had two questions. So there are certain codes because when I open the brand manual, there is there are many codes to remember. So I literally have to view the brand manual and I have to start making the poster. So any way of how do we remember it? And second question is on the position of the images or the logo or the certain taglines or something. Do we have certain positions for that, or we can place it anywhere whichever we feel is correct? Are there any guidelines for that?
Yes, there is clear guidelines in the brand manual. How do we put the logo? The idea is the logo needs to be distinct. That means it should not go with any images.
Yeah, tilted and all. Sorry to interrupt. Tilted and all that I know, but I mean the heading or the club or like
there is
the
no
title.
prescribed, there is no prescribed position of where to keep. But as I told you, it depends on the audience. If you're using a phone, people would see from top to bottom. So it would be good if you can, if you want to show your club first, put the club name on the top. If you want to show the event first, put the event details on the top, maybe the photograph and other aspects, and then maybe the club name. So it depends on what you want to show to the audience. What is the first thing the audience should see? Because you're not going to see the poster from bottom to top, right? You're going to see the poster from top to bottom. And that's the reason you need to ensure what kind of layout you're designing. Who are the audience? Is it a mobile audience who would probably see your flyer on a phone? Or is it a a corporate audience who usually are on emails, and they may open the email, or they are on a desktop kind of Facebook, and then they get onto Facebook and see from there. So it depends totally on the audience, but there is no prescribed. There is some prescription for placing the logo. There is some prescription for the spacing around the logo, which a lot of us miss. And this is primarily to ensure that the logo is distinct. If you start putting the logo towards extreme corner, maybe the logo might not be very much evident or clear in articulating. I'll pause here, and I see the timer is already showing some different color. Let's get on to the demo part of the session, and then I would come back to the questions. And please hold on the chat. Let's talk about the demo. And here, it's important that I show you some of the basic of designing. That is how to choose a canvas. How do you start designing, right? You need to fix a size. And maybe simultaneously, I thought I'll show Canva, but with the interest of time, I will stick to one. And I would share with the district team one of the video tutorial of one of our Toastmaster, my friend Toastmaster, who's done the workshop on Canva as well. So both of the videos can be shared, and you can refer this video for a hands-on demo on PowerPoint. Let's get started. It starts with you opening up a simple PowerPoint presentation. I believe every one of you here would have a PowerPoint or a Microsoft suite. Let me take this particular screen slightly down so that it's easy for you to see the controls. The first thing, is the canvas size, and the canvas size is fixed by doing some of the clicks. One is go to design, and in design you can see slide size. I again repeat, go to design, you can see slide size, go to custom size slide, and you can fix up the width and the height of this poster. There would be some custom sizes already. If you're clear of creating a A4 size flyer, you click A4. Otherwise, click on this width and height. I've given you some of the golden ratios. Let's pick up the square size. And for that, you can use 10:10. Some of you would say that I would like to print this material, and that's where I would ask you to double the size. 10:10 is good for a digital medium or for Facebook or Instagram. But if you want to print, just double the size to 20:20. That means you're actually designing on a 20-inch into 20-inch canvas. And even if it compresses, the quality does not get compressed. So as we are doing a digital, let me pick up 10:10, which is a safer, not a big file for you to even share with people. So that's where you fix the canvas size. And that's where you see that this canvas size has been already fixed. In this demo, I would be showcasing how to use a gradient. There is something called shape slicer, which is something very close and favorite for me because it helps to save a lot of time. Then comes the elements, which are there in Toastmasters guidelines. Then how to edit some shapes into the format you want, and some of the image background changes, which I'm going to tell you. Toastmaster Heshma said that I find it very difficult to go back and forth to the brand manual and go back to the brand manual and pick the colors from the brand manual, right? There are two ways for Canva users. You can save these colors. You can save up to 3 colors, or you can save the primary colors in the Canva palette. And in Photoshop, it is more easy. You don't have to save. You just have to use a master template, which I've created. For example, you need to first fix these colors on your left-hand side outside your canvas. The white color space is the canvas. And I would be creating these primary colors on the left-hand side, which I'll be using for every flyer, every poster. For example, how do I create this? I go to shapes. I pick any rectangular shape. I create a shape. Then I need to change this color to the brand color. I would go to fill shape, go to more fill colors. I repeat, go to fill shape, and then go to more fill colors. And here you can see that there is something called color mode. there is RGB, and there is HSL. I would suggest go with RGB, and you have two options. You can fill in these numbers, or you can fill in the hexadecimal code. So the colors can be formed with combination of these three colors, or with a digital code which is recently created for color combination. So I would suggest, if you do not have hexadecimal, you just have to put RGB from the brand manual. If you can see the brand manual, under the color guidelines, you can see that there is hexadecimal code, there is RGB, and there is one more color variant called CMYK. So this is usually used by professional tools, professional softwares, so that the print colors are accurate, because in printing they don't use 3 ink toners. They don't use red, green, and blue. They use 4 ink toners, which is C, cyan, M, Y, and K. And that's the reason they advise us to use CMYK format. But for us, for PowerPoint, you can use RGB or hexadecimal. Let's do a copy of this, and you paste it in the hexadecimal, and that color would be reflected here. And similarly, I have done for all the colors. You go to this manual, pick up the colors, and place it here. The second thing is about the gradient. Okay, let's pick how to create a gradient. Again, if you want to create a gradient, which I've shown you, the blue gradient, the loyal blue gradient, the maroon gradient, or the cool gray gradient, it is quite simple. And as I told you, once you fix this, once you create 4 boxes, you select all of these and group it. So I've already grouped it. And next time when you enter or copy and paste, the master palette is on the left hand side already. So you don't have to worry much, right? Let me show you how to create a gradient in PowerPoint. And creating gradients in PowerPoint is the easiest way. There is some limitation in even Canva to pick some of the specific gradients to create gradients, and you cannot create all the gradients in Canva, to be very honest. They are still adding up some of the pre-existing gradients. So I'll show you how to create a gradient here. Again, you go to shapes, you pick any shape, and if I want to create a full size gradient, I put a full size shape. The first thing which I would recommend every one of you is remove the outline of this shape. So with any shape, it comes with an outline. And how to remove the outline? You can double click on the shape and go to shape outline and click no outline. So the outline will go off. The next step is, how do I make a gradient for this? Maybe a Toastmaster Yeshma wants to create a loyal blue gradient. So in the brand manual, there are multiple gradient styles, right? There are more than 5 gradient styles for each of the color palette, the primary colors. So for example, I want to create a linear gradient, this particular thing, which is darker on the top side and lighter on the bottom side. What I do is I go to shapefill, I click here. I'm repeating, I go to shapefill, I click here, and there's something called gradient. I can choose some predefined gradient, but these will not be brand gradient. This would be some combination of the color which you're seeing, the blue color, but I want to create a loyal blue gradient. So I click more gradient. You go to shapefill, you go to gradient, and you go to more gradient. Once you go to more gradient, you can see that there is an option called gradient fill, and I select this gradient fill. In gradient fill, you can see that there is an option here called gradient stops, and this is one-time activity. Once you create some 3-4 gradients, you can just copy paste the gradient shapes in different flyers and reuse it in whatever way you want. For example, here I want to create this gradient, which is linear gradient of loyal blue. So I would first copy this code from the brand manual, and I will delete all these stops. You would have seen multiple pins here. I would only have 2 pins because there are only 2 colors. So I would select 1 pin, and here again I would go to more colors, and I would paste this code. So it would have one of the colors, which is the topmost color, The second is the blissful blue. I would select or copy this code. I would select the second pin and I would go to more colors and I would paste this code and your gradient is ready. You can use the same gradient, the way of gradient for creating the brown, which I've used here. You double click here, you can see that I've used two gradient. The cool gray, again, it has got cool gray, two gradient. Now comes the other part, right? The radial gradient. How do I change the radial? Or how do I change the shape? Do I need to repeat the step again? No, it's very easy in PowerPoint. For example, I need to invert this gradient. I used linear gradient 90. I want to invert this. That means I want the darker side at the bottom and the lighter side in the top. I just have to drag these pins on either side. Simple as that. And your gradient is ready. Your inverted gradient is ready. If I want to make a radial gradient, I just have to select something called radial from here. And I need to select which kind of radial. I want the center to be light and on the either sides to be dark. I select this and this is the gradient. And you can see the background which I am having as a zoom background is created on PowerPoint using 16:9 ratio and using the center gradient so that when I am sitting in the center, it looks like the light has been refracted from center. So in this way, you can create, you can again, you can invert the gradient. If you want the center part to be dark, you just have to move the pins and you're there. So you can create all kinds of gradient in PowerPoint and that's the easiest. And that's where probably I would probably say that we have learned how to create a gradient in PowerPoint. Let's mark this as green. Second is shape slicer. A lot of you would have seen that some of the photographs in circle, some of the photographs would be in square, some of the photographs would be in some fancy shapes. How do you get to that? Let me first pick up any random club member photograph from my local drive. For example, let me pick this person. And what I would be doing is I need to create absolute circle of this image. I don't want it in square shape. One important thing I need to see is whether this is in a square size. For that, I just need to double click and see here that it is 4.17 and 4.17. That is X and Y are same. That means this is a perfect square. If I need to convert this into a circle, I just need to go to crop to shape and click circle and the circle is perfectly fine. If I need to change the shape to some other shape, if I need to have it in diamond shape, I can have it in diamond shape. I want to change it in some other shape, which is easier for us to see that the design elements are in sync. Maybe a hexagon or octagon, you can use that shape. So this is an easy method to change the shape rather than you playing around with it. The next is very important. Is a lot of people ask me that I don't want this background to be there, right? Or if I have an image, I'll show you image. For example, let me insert one picture from the device, which has a very difficult background to remove. Downloads. Let's take District 120 Club Road Director, Distinguished Toastmaster Gayatri's photograph, and I don't want this background. How do I do that? There is a technique in PowerPoint to remove background, but I would suggest let's not go there. An easier way is a tool which I'm going to share with you is remove.bg. You can make a note here. I would ask Zoom Master to type this in www.remove.bg and you upload the image if you want to remove the background from wherever location you want. For example, I said I want to remove the background of this image and the background is removed. You download this and use it in your posters. A lot of you might have seen a lot of people using different kind of posters. Come here and we put it here. This is a background which is removed. If you want to change color of the background, you just simply have to either click here and fill the color.
Sorry to interrupt, but that background had gray squares, if I'm not mistaken, when you remove the background. Can you please show how to remove that?
This gray square?
Yeah, when you put the picture in that converter, right? Remove background
Yeah.
app.
Yeah.
So that has gray squares. So how to remove that?
Okay. So this is basically the transparent canvas. The transparent canvases looks like this. So you don't have to worry about it. So this image is being placed on a transparent canvas. The background is removed and the image is placed on a transparent background. So don't worry about it. Once you download, it would be automatically removed. It will be an image which will not have any gray or white background. Maybe post workshop, you can try how to get this up. So it'll be easy for you to do that. So this is one way.
Can
if you
share
want
the
to,
screen? Toastmasters Cyril, your screen is not shared now.
okay, I'll share that screen. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the way you remove the background, and you can remove the background of n numbers of images. 99.9% the background will be perfectly removed, even if it has multiple elements, not just a plain element. You can try this out, and this is one of the easier way for you to remove any background rather than playing around with any background remover from the PowerPoint. You remove the background from this tool, download it and use it, and you can play with it. The second is, a lot of people ask me that I have a specific shape and I want to probably, let's consider an image. Let's consider this image, okay? I'm copy pasting this image to my demo PPT. Okay, if you want to resize the size of this image in PowerPoint, you need to, if it's advanced PowerPoint, that is beyond 2007 version, you can just simply drag from the corner and the size or the aspect ratio, that is width and the height will not change. But if it's an older version, probably very less people would have, you should use a button on the keyboard which is control to resize it with the aspect ratio. When I say aspect ratio, it is not stretching it, it would be resized in the same format. But if it is a version beyond 2007, you can do that. And here I would show you something called shape slicer, right? And shape slicer is basically used if you want to cut the shape in a particular size, if you want to cut the image in a particular size. For example, in this image, I want to cut the image in this size. Okay, so I have this this particular shape, and I want to cut the image in this particular shape. How do I do that? In PowerPoint, again, it's a very easy tool. You overlap the image, whatever you want to slice. You select both the image, okay, and there is something called shape format here. You click on shape format, and there is something called merge shapes. And if you kind of yeah, so the shape should go behind. So I would show you. So while sharing the screen, it becomes slightly difficult. For example, this is a shape which I want to cut. So I select both the shapes and I go to shape format, and then I go here and then I fragment this. So in this way, you will be able to cut the shape in the size which you want, in whatever shapes you want. I would repeat again. You have the image set wherever you want. Pick the shape you want to slice. Cover the image with the shape. Select both the images. Go to shape format and so overlay the image with the shape. Select both the images and click subtract. This will help in creating the shape of your size. That's the use of shape slicer. Some of the elements which are there in the posters can be used using the shapes of the posters. For example, I can use the shape of the same shape for designing. For example, I want to kind of rotate this particular image. I can either click here and rotate it, or I can click rotate and flip horizontal, vertical, and then I can place it here. And this is not a brand color, so maybe I'll use some brand color here. I would select here, shape fill. Already in recent colors, lot of colors will be already there. Let me pick the true maroon color. And people have asked me, how do I reduce the transparency? So true maroon color transparency cannot be reduced, but if you're using, for example, this color, right, linear maroon gradient, you can reduce the transparency. In PowerPoint, the easier way is you select this. There is a brush tool here which is called Format Painter, and you have already selected the format or the gradient of this. Go on the slide you want and just click here. So the gradient would be applicable. How do I reduce the transparency of this? So on top of this, if I'm using any kind of other elements like square, and if it's a white square, I can go and reduce the transparency to 30%, which is 70% opaque. This is how you can play around with the transparency part of the design. I have created one of the posters which I would like to share recently, which use the same transparency element. Let me just quickly show you. Is the joint poster? Yes. So this is the poster which has been created on PowerPoint. So I used an image. I overlaid the image with a transparency background of the linear gradient. This is all created by shapes. Again, any transparency should not be more than 30%. And this is one of the flyer which has been created for a joint meeting. Similarly, other elements which is available is you just Google in vectors. I would type in here. It's called vectors. You select designing elements in vectors, and you can pick those from there. I guess some of you are on. Can you please mute yourself, Zoom Master? So in this way, you can use a lot of elements for designing. One of the elements which you can create, it would take some time for you to create, but if you create and keep it, you can reuse and again. These elements is one of the elements which I'm going to show you is. Yeah. this poster. So in this poster, if you can see, there is an element of circle here, and this is basically downloaded from Google, from a royalty-free website. You can just search royalty-free vector gradients, and you can use these gradients to create. So there are multiple elements here, simply using some shapes, some way of formatting, putting it together. The background has been removed, image has been put, and the idea was most of our audience would be on laptop, and that's the reason this is created in this way, for a better visual appeal. So you can create multiple such posters. The good part is you can just copy paste it. Next time, remove these content if you want to remove this content, and put some other content. If you want to change only this color, you pick any gradient from the previous poster. For example, this gradient, you click format paint, come here, change the color, and you can use the same template again and again, which makes your life a little easy as a VPPR, that you don't have to create multiple posters. You can just play around with the colors and come back to the gradients. So that's with respect to the elements which I wanted to share with you all. And let's get on to the next thing, which is edit shape. For example, I have something like this particular shape, and I want to edit it. Right now, if I'm moving, it is moving in the same format, that is width into height way of movement. Let me edit this shape. So when I'm editing this shape, I can actually move the shape in any way I want. And I can create the elements, or I can reshape the whole shape. And here, if you can see, this has been created with that particular aspect. So what I did is I right clicked, I clicked edit points, and I actually edited a square into a more like a trapezoid. So this way you can edit the shapes for actually getting onto any shapes of your style. If at all it is not getting aligned, you can actually move this edit point and move it to the corner of the poster so that it looks aligned. So this is something which is edit point, which is used for resizing some of the designs in the format you want. And I have already covered image background. So you can use rg.bg as a removal background website for it. So a lot of people ask me, I have designed it in PowerPoint. Okay, what next? How do I actually export this as image? For this, so for example, if I have this poster which is already designed, and if I want to export this as image, I go to File, I go to Save As, and pick the location. I want to save it in desktop. I want to rename it. And in the format, I select PNG, which is portable network graphic format, because PNG has better quality than JPEG. Even in Canva, you would say that export in PNG would have high quality. And that's the reason PNG is a better format. Again, if you have any transparent elements also, a lot of times PNG would retain the transparency of that element with 100% accuracy. You can also export it as JPEG, because some of the, if you're using a mobile-based Instagram, so it becomes very difficult for you to upload a PNG format on Instagram. So that time you can use JPEG. Only if you're using a desktop app for Instagram, right? If you're not using a desktop app, I would suggest export it in PNG and do it. And you can do anything and everything from designing, pick up images, put in the gradients, and a lot of the other aspects can be covered, like I've covered here, using gradient, how to place the images. I've created two posters for two different countries so that it's easy for us also to share the posters with them and understand that this poster is for them, this poster is for us, and a lot of other things. So you can play around, and you can do a lot of different aspects with the PowerPoint. There is more detailed video which I have put. So that's one of the very important thing which probably a lot of us miss on understanding how to create a brand compliant poster. Let me get on to the Mentimeter again. let me get back to the questions. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer with respect to PowerPoint or with respect to branding. And then quickly, maybe we'll get reactions from the session. So let's pick up the questions which we left pending. We have another 5 minutes to close. So maybe I'll pick up 3 questions. You can raise your hand and ask your questions.
Sumita had raised hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, please go
Hello.
ahead.
Hi, this is Sumita here. I had a query with regards. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Should I continue? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I just had a question. Thank you. It's been just a wonderful session today. I just wanted one clarification. That is, you gave us a number of sites where, we could download the images. And I'm aware that, TMI also has got a lot of pictures that we can use. But my query is with regard to a certain pictures which are sort of a no-no. Example, using fruits, or using sceneries and stuff like that, which is an absolute, which is considered, or cartoons for that matter, which should not be used. Now my question is that if there is a theme which is related with let's say a holiday, or it is with regard to pertaining to something food, then how do we represent it? Could you give some tips on that?
Sure. So I had the similar question, and I was basically making a poster which was a joint meeting between a club in India and a club in Pakistan. And we wanted to show that we are doing a meeting for peace, right? The theme of the meeting was peace for humanity. And usually what comes when we think of peace, dove, the shape of the peace symbol, right? Maybe Indian flags, maybe country maps, right? These are the something which comes. I had some doubts. I wrote to Toastmaster Branding, and I got very clear answers for that. And that's the reason I would strongly recommend, if you have any doubts, write to brand@toastmasters.org. They do reply you back. But here the question was, can I use it? The answer which came in is, if you're using it, you are basically representing some other organization. The peace organization or the peace symbol actually is an entity of some NGO. Again, if you're using dove, it is something which is symbolically a reference to some other a bird, right? If we say that we cannot use bird symbols, it is for a reason that Toastmaster believes that it would dilute the core of Toastmaster flyer. The core of Toastmasters is promoting public speaking, showcasing the togetherness, and that's where they suggested replace it with some phrase or put in the maps. So for some team meeting, I know there would be some limitation, but we would get some images which would probably reflect the same. Maybe a poster where there is a handshake which shows togetherness, like 2 different countries joining hands together to do an event. So that way you can show using images or using some kind of format. So in that way, it really helps in you showcasing the theme of the meeting. Whether it is Friendship Day, you can show a Toastmaster gathering where it's more like a friendly atmosphere with use of image. If it's a mentoring, you can show 1:1 person speaking. A lot of things can be done, but let's stick to the images which we have in the Toastmaster portal, which will help you to get a fair bit of understanding of what is the true sense. So I know there is a limitation, and so with that limitation, we just have to focus on how best we can use the core of Toastmasters, which is meeting setup or that public speaking friendly atmosphere and all of that. So that would really help in probably getting the core of the meeting. So rather sticking to the theme of the meeting, I would suggest let's stick to the learnings which Toastmasters gives, promoting public speaking. The poster should show that. Theme is just a medium for getting people, but the core should never be off. The core should be always, we are promoting a public speaking, we are a public speaking forum, and a meeting will help you to get confidence and get on to leadership opportunities.
Toastmaster Cyril, I think Toastmaster Arnav want to ask you something.
Yeah, please, Toastmaster Arnav. And in the meanwhile,
Hi.
you can rate the session. You can just go onto the Mentimeter and put in your one-word reaction for the session.
Toastmaster Cyril, I wanted to ask you 2 questions. This is related to the brand manual. The very first question is, if you see there's a blue color band on the left, which covers almost 33% of the page on the brand manual itself.
Yes.
Now, that itself does not follow the brand guidelines. That means it has different colors. And on top of that, there's another brand which comes at the bottom, ends up into a mic. Now, if you see the transparency changes the blue color. Now, on that specific page, there are 4 different blues. Now, do we have to follow that? Because that's not compliant.
You can overlay gradients. If you can see, the poster for this event also has multiple gradients which are overlaid on each other, if I'm correct.
But
so
that changes the colors, right? It gives you a different blue.
It doesn't change the color if it is not transparent. If it is transparent, ensure the transparency is not more than 30%.
Okay, because
So
that's what
I
is
also
not
had
there
the
in the
same
brand
question
guidelines.
with respect to brand manual, that they can use, why can't we? And then I
Yes.
wrote back to brand, and they said that if you check the transparency, even though they have stuck to one thing, that the transparency is not more than 30%. That's the reason it is still looking like royal blue color. To be very honest, I picked up the color from Color Pickle, and it still has a 30% transparency.
Okay,
So they're not.
It comes from dark blue to light, and the light
Yeah,
blue
so
is something which is not
it is a
allowed.
linear
That's what I was
gradient.
asking.
They have used a linear gradient, and they have reduced the transparency to 30%, which is very much perfectly okay. And
Okay,
there is some exceptions for manuals. There is some exceptions for even newsletters, which you can write and get approvals. So there is some exceptions. There is some linearity. Yeah, go ahead with your second question.
Second question is, if you see, we are in the Middle East now. If they have this library on TMI website, which they are encouraging us to use. But if you see, there's a lack of Middle Eastern pictures. Now, what happens is, when we create something, people always relate to it. They see themselves in those kind of situations, or the leaflets. But when we look at this, we don't have enough there. We don't have the library which portrays the Middle East culture, or the people.
Understand.
It's all Western.
You can always go to Pixabay and check for regional photographs. Even you can go to Adobe Stock, and I told you 10 photographs can be picked up from there, and reuse the photographs. It is at the end a US based organization, and they're trying to build collaterals for us to have a consistency across the globe for the images, because a lot of questions came to them that which images to use. So they're trying to put in there. You can always write a recommendation or a suggestion that can we use more regional photographs, and they would add to the library. It is a living library, and we can always write back to them. One of the things which I wrote was, why don't we have a true maroon gradient last year? I attended a session from the brand specialist Ileana, and to be very honest, I would show you the exact pack which I used probably a year and a half back, and the same gradient is being used. So they follow a pattern. And if you understand the pattern, maybe tomorrow you will also get to see the happy yellow gradient. So they follow a particular pattern, and it's good that we have more options than last year or last year. So let's be happy, and let's ensure the images which you are used. I would probably say let's pick it up from the site, which is probably free for some picture download and reuse, and probably also write back to them saying that can we have more of such regional images.
Thank you so much.
I would just check with the timer if we are on time, and probably we'll stop.
Yeah, you're on time. Only 5 minutes, yes, I think, because the question.
Okay, fine.
But your session was on time. Perfect.
So maybe I can pick more questions, and if you want to go to any specific part of the brand manual and want to get some clarification, I would be also happy to do that. So if you ask me which tool to use, it is personal choice. Okay. I have a Mac which has a Photoshop. So I'm very lazy to move from my office laptop to Mac to design on a Photoshop. So the easiest and the quickest way for me is, if I'm free, and I hope off the records, if I'm busy and I'm not involved in a meeting, I do designing. And the easy and the most handy device in front of me is the PowerPoint. You can design it and you can save it. You can send the whole PPT to some other designer. Rather than Canva, it is difficult for you to create logins and share the login ID. In PowerPoint, you can create templates and share it with some other VPPRs or your associate VPPRs, and they can edit it and export it and share it. So it's easy as a material to be shared across. So that's one thing I like about PowerPoint. And till now, there hasn't been any thing which has been difficult for me to design in PowerPoint. I've close to design more than 200 collaterals on PowerPoint. And it's been absolutely easy to replicate, to reuse, to share, to post, everything. So even videos are easily created on PowerPoint. You just have to use transition effects and export it as MP4. That's the simplest thing which you can use, and the transitions really work well. Maybe on a different workshop, I would get in some details about how to use PowerPoint to create some of the videos. I'm saying very simple videos, not complex videos where you have to put a front screen with the disclaimer, an image or a video, maybe DTM Viju speaking about this workshop, and then a banner saying DTM Viju, Division Director M. So it's as simple as that, and you have an end credit screen. Simple, no complicated. The idea is also shown that the video is brand compliant with the front screen and the credit screen, and nothing fancy, simple but effective. So something which is simple and effective can be used, can be done with a tool like simple as PowerPoint. Why not use it? Something which can be created, posters which people use, some professional tools like Photoshop can be created on PowerPoint. Why not use it? Explore. Once you fall in love, I would say, I've known people who started design on Canva and they've come back and they've started using PowerPoint. Nothing like personal favorite, but it is very easy for use. And thank you for all the reactions. Let me get back to the presentation, and these are my contact details. And please do connect with me if you have any doubts, any queries. I'm always there. You can scan the link tree and connect with me on social media. And thank you so much for the invitation, Distinguished Toastmaster Viju. I hope the session was helpful. I would hand it back to the Masters of Ceremonies. Thank you.